Hi everybody and welcome back to Murder at Bedtime. If you have been here before, you know that this is a no frills, no waffle, no advert, no sponsor bedtime story. And I think you are all awesome. And if this is your first time, I hope I can persuade you to stay and come back again. And with that, let's crack on. Little Marlow in Buckinghamshire is a lovely little town that has been used many times for filming the popular TV series Midsummer Murders, along with many more. I was researching the history of nearby Barlow for my other channel when I came across the intriguingly named murder in the nearby village called the musical Milkman murder. And a very strange case it is too. On the 30th of September 1920, the Reverend Allen answered a knock on the door of the rectory to a very upset young lady called Lillian Marks. She told him about a night of terror that she had just endured at the hands of her new employer at the home at Cottage in the village. So outraged at the alleged treatment of Miss Marks was the heroic Reverend that he strode straight over and confronted the man, who he instantly recognised as his very cheerful and jovial Milkman, who smilingly insisted that Miss Marks had got the wrong end of the stick. The Reverend left Barn Cottage not altogether satisfied with the answers he had received. Now, we don't know whether he then informed the police or not, but news of the complaint reached the ears of Inspector William West at Marlow Police Station. He in turn contacted Superintendent George Kirby at High Wycombe Police, and Kirby rang Miss Marks' father Reuben to ask him about the allegation the next morning. On the 1st of October, Inspector West decided off his own bat to visit Barn Cottage. Getting no reply to his knocks and shouts, he found the doors were all locked, but some windows were opened. He arranged to meet Superintendent Kirby the next morning to make entrance to the property and have a look around. The next morning they once again knocked, but getting no answer, they climbed in through a downstairs window. Finding nothing downstairs apart from a half-eaten tea of bread and jam and buns, they made their way upstairs to check the bedrooms. They checked 3 of the 4 and found nothing unusual, but all that would change when they reached bedroom number 4. That could only be reached by a door in bedroom number 3. In this room they saw a camp bed with a counterpane that reached down to the floor. When they pulled it up, they discovered under the bed the body of a woman wrapped in a sheet and lying on her back. They covered her face and left the cottage. While the superintendent started to make local inquiries, Inspector West went to nearby Marlow to find a doctor. He was very lucky. He found 2, having a chat in the high street, and they accompanied him back to Barn Cottage. Their preliminary findings were that this was the body of a woman of around 25 years of age, and in the latter stages of pregnancy. Her face was discoloured, a blue-purplish colour, and there was a red-stained mucus around her mouth and her right eye cavity. When they turned her over, the red mucus oozed from her mouth, but there were no marks of violence on her. In their opinion, she had been dead 3 to 4 days and had been poisoned with prussic acid. There was no sign of her husband, the local milkman they now knew to be 32-year-old George Bailey, or the couple's 2-year-old daughter Holly. But not for long though. On Saturday evening, Bailey was arrested while standing under a streetlight near Reading train station. He at first denied being George Bailey or having a wife called Kate. But unfortunately, one of the two policemen, Constable Henry Paul, was from Marlow and had spoken to George and Kate in the past. He was arrested, taken to the police station, searched and found to have a bottle containing prussic acid and another containing opium on him. He then admitted he was in fact George Bailey. He had a wife called Kate and informed them that daughter Holly was safe and well and staying with his sister in Swindon. He then added very strangely that he didn't wish to see her ever again. A short time later, Inspector West arrived in Reading, and after telling Bailey what he and Superintendent Kirby had found at Barn Cottage, he was arrested for the murder of his wife. So what made the police think that the much-loved local milkman, who whistled and hummed away while doing his milk round, had murdered his 7-month pregnant wife? Well, some of it may have been to do with the handwritten note that they found in his pocket, explaining how he had planned to kill his wife and daughter and then himself. It also may have looked a bit dodgy that he had amassed quite a collection of poison by telling local chemists falsely that he was a vet and farrier and needed the poisons for putting down cats and dogs, which apparently was a lucrative business, even in a village as small as Little Marlow. Nice. Also, Bailey said that he had invented a system of writing music which much simplified the old tried and trusted way of writing music. Now, whether he had and believed in it, we don't know, but the police believed he used it to try and seduce women. He would advertise in the newspaper for young girls to apply to come to work in Little Marlow on this musical system to get it written and out into the world, but he wanted to know what their age and appearance was too, which is very strange. Then he had them come to the cottage where he could interview them and give them a good look over, and if he liked the look of them, agreed to pay them wages that he could in no way pay them on a milkman's wage, and they could also stay in his cottage. Then there was Miss Lillian Marks, who Bailey had definitely taken a shine to. And while his wife laid on a bed stone dead with Holly, her daughter, lying next to her in one bedroom in the next room, Bailey had persuaded Lillian to sleep overnight, where she then had to fight him off all night as he continually tried to get into bed with her, telling her he would like to make her the mistress of the house and have his children, because he wasn't in fact married and the child was in fact his sister's. The annoyingly ever-smiling Bailey told police he was only in Lillian's bedroom to stop her going into the next room and discovering his wife's dead body. The poor woman having to try and stay in a room while Bailey sat on a chair against the door of the room his dead wife was laid in all night. And as we know, in the morning, Lillian made her escape to the Reverend Allen's house. Very strangely, I thought, though, not until she had had her breakfast with the defendant. The whole night fighting off his advances must have given her a bit of an appetite. The trial of Bailey began on the 13th of September 1920. It was a landmark trial, as it was the first murder trial in Britain to have women on the jury. Maud Stevenson, Annie White and Matilda Fack made this case famous the country over, with many men believing the fairer sex to be too delicate to hear such horrible details. As it was, of course, they coped just as well as the men. The judge was Justice Sir Henry McCarty, The defence was a young, inexperienced lawyer, Samuel Johnston, who was up against the vastly more experienced prosecution for the Crown, Hugo Young. Bailey was on a hiding to nothing. With the poison's note, the lies, the girls, and his very checkered criminal past, the evidence was mountainous. Samuel Johnston put up a very good fight, telling the jury that he had fallen from height twice on his head and had attempted suicide at least twice himself, once with prussic acid, the same drug as he allegedly killed his wife. Also, a letter that Kate had written to Bailey's mother was supposed to show that Kate herself had suicidal tendencies and had killed herself. This defence and the fact Bailey did not seem to be able to stop smiling, unfortunately for him, did not convince the jury, and he was found guilty of the murder of his wife. The lesser charge of the attempted rape of Lillian Marks being dropped because the murder charge took precedent. All that was left to do was for Justice McCarty to don the black cap and tell Bailey that he would be taken to a place of lawful execution and hanged by the neck until you are dead, and may the Lord have mercy on your soul. And with that he was whipped off to Oxford Jail to await his date with death, or James Ellis as he was known. At 8 a.m. on the 2nd of March 1921, George Arthur Bailey walked with no fuss or hindrance to the gallows and disappeared through the trapdoor. Just a side note to this, it's interesting to note that the judge, Justice McCarty, the hangman, James Ellis, and the forensic scientist for the prosecution, Sir Bernard Spilsbury, would all go on to commit suicide. Well, I hope you found that story interesting, and it's now time for the waffle bit. So anybody who's had enough of my voice already, please have a lovely evening, enjoy your sleep, and for you masochists, here's a bit of waffle. First, I'd like to say that I found a book on this case called The Musical Milkman Murder by Quentin Falk. It was a brilliant help in writing this episode. It leaves no stone unturned, and if you really do want to know the whole story, this is really a great read. Don't forget to drop me a line about any of the cases I waffle on about on here, and please let me have your suggestions for further cases. And please, if you have time, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you listen on the podcast, please leave a review. Apparently it all helps. If you get the chance, if you could pop along and look and give my other channel a little look, The Exiled Yellowbelly, that would be brilliant. It would make me dead chuffed. And that's it really. Until next time. So hopefully see you here next time. Stay safe and sleep well. Good night.